Hi, Dr. Maura Cullen here, author of 35 Dumb Things Well-Intended People Say. The topic of today's video, which is part of the Diversity Quick Flick series, is building the business case for diversity. Now, a shift in perspective is needed as to how we frame the business case for diversity. Instead of asking, how do we build a business case for diversity? What we should be asking is how can businesses prosper that do not value diversity? I mean, how does a company grow if they do not keep up with the changing demographics of their consumers and employees? Years ago, diversity initiatives were considered cutting-edge business practices. Today, it's a necessity. The simple truth is that in order to grow as a business, you must be diversity-wise just to keep pace with your competitors. Now, many businesses have already experienced the financial benefits and increases in customer and employee satisfaction and productivity. We all know that it costs less money to keep a loyal customer or an employee than it is to get a new one. If you ask yourself, what are the benefits of diversity and how does it impact your bottom line? If you're asking that question, you're already lagging behind your competitors. Most likely, you view diversity initiatives through more of a deficit model lens, believing that the costs are too high to implement. In the long run, this perspective will not serve you or your business. It may feel financially better in the short term, but it lacks vision. Instead, to remain competitive, today's businesses must view diversity through an investment model lens. It's a classic line, you can pay me now or pay me later. The pay me later will always end up costing you more because it typically comes as a result of something that has gone horribly wrong. It'll cost you far less if you put your investment into implementing diversity initiatives proactively versus reactively. Now, we've outlined 4 principal influences that are changing the landscape of the workforce and how business is done today. Number 1, productivity and problem solving. Research indicates that diverse work teams outperform homogeneous teams. I mean, here's a quick example. Many years ago, I sat on a committee that was charged with rectifying some compliant issues regarding ADA, American with Disabilities Act. Now, the issue at hand involved the accessibility of drinking fountains. Initially, many of the members falsely believed that because the building was an older structure, that it'd be grandfathered in, thus exempting them from having to make adjustments. There was no grandfather clause with ADA, but we didn't know this because we didn't have the right people at the table, people who would bring a different perspective. You see, we needed somebody with a legal perspective, but that wasn't the only person. Another perspective we were missing was to have some folks at the table that have a disability or people that were encountering accessibility barriers daily. Because the committee consisted solely of people who currently did not have mobility issues, we wasted a lot of time and resources creating remedies that were costly and problematic. At last, one of the members had the wisdom to ask some people with disabilities their thoughts, and they offered a simple, quick, and inexpensive solution. Water coolers. Having water coolers with cups or providing individual bottles of water would suffice for this particular situation. Does that mean that you have a person from every underrepresented group under the sun in your organization or on every committee? No. Okay? However, the takeaway message in this example is clear. Diverse work teams outperform homogeneous teams. The benefits of having diverse work teams include things like increased problem solving, which was demonstrated in the example I just gave. Others are increased innovation and thinking outside the box, And according to the National Urban League, effective diversity programs are associated with an 18% increase in productivity. 18%. Diverse work teams experience production creation to a bigger and broader consumer base, which means more customers, which results in more profits. The second principal influencer is the changing racial demographics. Now let's look at it globally. In 1900, 30% of the world's population was considered white. In 1950, that decreased to 24%. And in 2050, it is projected that only 9% of the world's population will be white. 9%. In the United States, let's look at the numbers. In the year 2000, 69% of the U.S. population was white. By 2050, the Census Bureau projects a decrease to 46%. That's less than half. From 2000 to 2010, the Hispanic Latino population grew a whopping 43%. By 2050, 30% of the U.S. population is projected to be Hispanic or Latino. Currently, we're experiencing the first overall decline in the number of high school graduates in more than a decade. And although the overall number is declining, there has been a shift in the racial makeup of who our graduates are. These statistics don't even include immigrant and non-documented students. Here are the numbers of what our new batch of graduate and members of the new workforce will look like through 2015, according to the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education. So, Hispanic and Latino graduates, a 54% increase. For Asian Pacific Islanders graduates, 32% increase. American Indian, Native Alaskan, 7% increase. Black non-Hispanic graduates will be increased by 3%, and here's the kicker. White non-Hispanic graduates will decrease by 11%. By 2020, it's anticipated that 46% of college graduates will be considered what we call today minorities. And these numbers are just the racial differences. Now add things like age, sexual orientation, ethnicity, gender, disability, socioeconomic class, and on, and you'll begin to see how the landscape has changed and will continue to change dramatically. Hey, the numbers are clear. Both our consumer base and our workforce has forever changed. Common sense dictates that businesses must keep pace in order to effectively capitalize on these changes. The third principle influence legal implications. Let me give you the bad news first. Here are some of the settlement costs experienced due to discrimination or bias. All right, Coca-Cola, $192 million to settle a racial discrimination case. Abercrombie & Fitch, $50 million to settle race-gender discrimination. And for those of you who are in colleges and universities, you're not exempt. Florida Gulf Coast University paid $4.2 million to settle a gender equity suit. Rutgers University, just over $500,000, $516,000 to settle a racial discrimination case. State Farm Insurance, $157 million. And Home Depot, $104 million to settle a racial discrimination. Now, none of these obviously are a simple slap on the wrist. Yeah, they're on the extreme end of the continuum. However, the average cost of a settlement, it's nothing to sneeze at. Including legal fees, it's an average of $800,000. Now here's the good news, as outlined by Susan Heathfield in About.com, on what employers can do to prevent employment discrimination. Number one, implement and integrate a zero tolerancy policy in your workplace. Number 2, train managers of the anti-discrimination policy with the expectation that prevention and adherence to the policy is their responsibility. This will hold them accountable. And number 3, require mandatory employee diversity training. Bottom line, be proactive in creating and implementing diversity initiatives and policies. It'll be a great return on your investment. And the 4th and final influencer is a 3-step: recruit, retain, refer. Let's look at step 1, recruit. Recruiting any qualified candidate for a position in your organization will cost you money. Organizations that believe that finding a qualified pool of diverse candidates costs more money than a non-diverse pool are not serious about finding the best candidates. Too many companies and businesses tend to shortcut the process and they get lazy. They rely on the old true and tried methods of recruiting that they've always employed and wonder why they get the same results, a homogeneous pool. I once heard Tony Robbins, who's a great motivational speaker, say, "If you always do what you've always done, then you'll always get what you've always gotten." If you want a different result, then you must take different action. The most qualified people are not always white or male. If you want the best qualified candidates of all races, genders, sexual orientations, age, abilities, on and on, then you must go fishing in many different ponds. It's not an extra expense, it's just the cost of assembling the finest team for your organization. Step 2, retain. All right, this is not rocket science. We all know that it costs more money to recruit talented candidates than it does to retain them. Here are the facts according to the Corporate Leavers Survey. Each year, more than 2 million professionals and managers leave their jobs due to unfairness, costing employers $64 billion in turnover costs. People of color are 3 times more likely to leave because of bias. Employee satisfaction increases productivity, reduces absenteeism, and reduces bad morale and reduces employee turnover. Building a more inclusive workforce will increase your employees' satisfaction. Now, with regard to satisfied customers, those who feel valued and respected tend to be more loyal, which results in repeated sales and increased referrals. Step 3, refer. One of the most effective ways to cut recruiting costs for building a diverse workforce and consumer base is to keep the workers and customers you do have happy. Social networking sites have changed the game of advertising forever. With a click of a button, consumers and potential employees continue to evaluate your company. And happy employees and consumers tell other people of their positive experience, and that results in more employee applications and more customers. Conversely, word of mouth referrals can cut both ways and can have a negative impact on your bottom line. The Corporate Leavers Survey states that 24% of employees who experience bias-related experiences at work strongly discourage them from recommending their employer to other potential employees. 13% stated that their negative experience strongly discouraged them from recommending their employer's products or services. You see, good news and bad news travel quickly, especially given the far reach of the internet and social networking. The great news is that you get to frame the outcome by building an inclusive and diverse work environment that welcomes the talents and contributions of all. Now, if you've enjoyed this video and would like to receive the entire Diversity Quick Flicks series for free, please visit diversityquickflicks.com and we'll get them out to you right away. And please, feel free to share the link with colleagues and friends. And most importantly, Keep on doing what you do because you really do make a difference. Take care.